No snuggly cat today.
The invite has been sent. Today we want to chat about food and how it plays a role in our connections. For those just joining us, my name is Argentarius. I'm currently painted as a tiger.
And I am Saoirse, and I am painted as a zebra today.
So, how did we connect with each other through food?
Oh, and like when we were first getting together?
Right. When
Yeah.
we were first getting together.
One of the ways was, because this was back in the US, in the United States.
Right.
So, different from where we're at now, so different food options. One of which you hadn't really eaten at, but was one of my favorite places to eat, which is Bojangles.
You're right. You introduced me to Bojangles. That
Yeah.
is something I will never forget. You introduced me to it, and I loved it so much that on the trip back, I stopped again just to pick up more.
Because when we were long distance.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was like, I need to get this while I can still get it.
Yeah, we were a few states away from each other.
I always tell people if they're in there and they've not gone, go to Bojangles.
Right.
Get their biscuits, get their chicken.
Biscuits here in Ireland.
Yeah.
And the UK.
Different meaning.
Right. It's a bit of a different meaning. I think.
Different food.
Yeah.
Biscuits here are more like cookies in the States.
Yes. It's like a dry cookie.
Yeah. Our biscuits in the US are more like scones, but they're still a very different texture.
Oh, also, when we were at a friend's party, they were having some Louisiana, New Orleans style food,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, because that's where they're originally from.
Yeah.
Or, well, had spent a good portion of their life and was like a chef there and stuff, too.
I think it was actually the gator meat that I had.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was. Which I was staying away from.
Right, because it's spicy.
Yeah.
And you, at the time, you didn't have some spice, like the Bojangles spices.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have very spicy food.
And that one was very spicy.
That one was very spicy.
Like my friend even was like, this is not for you. Because they knew my spice level. So I was like, all right, keep away from that.
Yeah. And then, so I had the food and I didn't even think about it and we kissed. And then later.
But it wasn't even like a long kiss or anything. So it's like nothing.
It was
but
like
just
a smooch on the
patching,
lips.
and then so I sit there and I'm continuing my conversation that I'm having. And while I'm talking, my lips start going numb. And I'm sitting there like, this is a very odd sensation while I'm still talking. And also because my lips are starting to get a little like numb, it's starting to mess with my speech patterns. So I'm sitting there going, am I having a stroke? And it takes me a second. And so I'm like going through all like the list of things. And I'm like, well, it's not getting worse. And I'm not like fully slurring and my face is fine. Just going through the checklist of like stroke issues, trying to also carry on a conversation with somebody and like not have a full on panic.
Right. I remember this. And then all of a sudden you came to me and was like, sweetie, did you eat the spicy dish?
Yeah. And so then I sat there thinking and like backtracking, like, okay, what has changed in the last like 5-10 minutes? Because what I had eaten, what hadn't changed mentally, trying to rewind the clock.
It's a
like,
full-on Sherlock situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Trying to come around. And then it was just like, okay, hang on. Like talking to my friends. Like,
I have deduced.
What's wrong? I'm like, I need to check something.
Yeah.
And rule something else I might be having a stroke. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I can't feel my mouth.
That was. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm like, no more kisses until you're inside your mouth.
Wash your mouth.
Too much spice.
Okay.
But like, I knew that you liked spicy food and stuff because you liked Indian food.
Right.
Like, I liked some spice, and it was something I had wanted to work on. You took me to like eating Indian food.
Yeah.
Actually, wasn't it like it was a little buffet?
It was.
So we could try different little dishes and stuff, which have like varying levels of spice.
Taste test.
And you taste test it. Then I would describe for you what I was feeling.
Yes.
As we were going.
Like a punch in the face.
Yeah. One of them was like a super sneaky spice. And I was like, oh, that's fine. That's really tasty. That's good. And I can't feel my throat. Tricky fish. Like the Lilo and Stitch thing with a Bleakley. Tricky fish.
Yes.
I think it's a dolphin. It's not.
Right.
So that was us trying to like figure out where my kind of spice level was in comparison. And, and then slowly introduce things and see at what point was I okay.
And I'm really glad that we connected over that because I like spicy foods.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't pressure you or anything about that at all, of course.
And it's not that it's, we couldn't have any spice ever, or like I couldn't be around it, or I was like super allergic or something.
And I'm really glad that we had the Indian as an option, like the buffet and everything, because that gave you it gave you safe options that you could always bail out, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
And not be hungry still.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like waste a bunch of food.
And one of the things that I grew up not liking, which is cake, we ended up figuring out, because you have a friend who worked as a chef. We're still friends.
Yes.
Thank
still
you
friends.
very much for the wedding cake, by the way. It was good, and we enjoyed it for a long time afterwards, too.
But yeah, we had to...
You found out that I like baklava. So we essentially had a baklava cake.
Yeah, so we found a way for, it to work for like flavors and not be like too overly sweet, so like tasty for both of us, and still a cake. So that way we could have a cake that we could cut and have ourselves, and then we got cupcakes for everybody else, like a bunch of varieties of different kinds from a local bakery. So that was really fun. So it was a way we could still have fun, and people could also have options as well.
One of the things I loved about that cake was the texture,
Yeah. We also found, while we were exploring various foods and things, was barbecue.
Right. I introduced you to Korean barbecue because you hadn't tasted that before.
Well, I didn't have Korean barbecue specifically. I had bibimbap.
Oh, yeah.
It was...
Same meat.
That was one of the things that you had mentioned, because I had other friends that had introduced me to that.
I like all kinds of barbecue.
Yeah, all kinds of barbecue. And I introduced you to a certain type of barbecue, which is my favorite.
Yes.
Which you can only get in a specific state.
Yep.
So more of a vinegar-based one. It's not saucy, all of that fun stuff. So that was one of the things of trying out different barbecues and seeing what of the ones that we'd liked. So
Yeah.
you introduced me to the Korean barbecue, and I introduced you to my state's claim to fame.
Yeah. I don't think, since we've been together, I don't think I've cooked barbecue, the kind of barbecue that I do.
Yeah.
Yet. I don't think I've done that for decades, to be honest.
Yeah, even before me, hadn't really made it in a while.
Yeah. I want to do it again. It'd be nice to introduce it to like our
friends here in Ireland.
Our Irish friends, yeah, because they have barbecue here, but it's kind of a sweet barbecue.
Yeah.
What I like to do is a mix of savory and sweet, so it's a mixture of like Chinese flavors and a bit of the sweetness.
Speaking of Chinese, like talking about some of our family recipes.
Right, yeah.
What are some quick meals or common meals or things that we were kind of used to having?
Yeah, when we were first living together, we were both working in a 9-to-5 office situation.
And we were also slightly off shift.
Oh, shit. You were on a different shift.
Yeah, I was still slightly off a different shift.
So I think you in the morning would prepare like I was about to say hot pot, but it's a crock pot.
Crock pot.
It is a hot pot.
Yeah, it is hot. It does get warm.
It's also a pot.
Yeah, slow cooker.
Yeah.
Because that was something that I had a fair amount of like recipes for, so it was easy to kind of get up, put everything in it.
And then when I came home, I'd have instructions on like, do all of this. It wasn't that long, but
wasn't that long. But it was normally like, it'll be done by the time that they're back, and then they can finish it. So then
once you were home, we could then have dinner together.
Yeah.
And that was nice. I really liked that.
Yeah, since we've moved, but also we have traveled, how have we connected with places that we've gone and now where we live too?
So like places where we visited.
Yeah, where we've gone on vacations or we have friends from.
Well, since we've immigrated to Ireland.
Yeah.
We've gotten introduced to Irish food. Actually, I asked some Irish people, what's a good Irish staple, And that would be like the chicken roll. Chicken roll is basically, I saw it explained very well by like a Casey Explosion. That it's basically a baguette, fried chicken in it, and you can have
and other toppings.
and other toppings too. It's like you can go to any gas station and get like
or petrol for those that aren't
petrol station, yeah, or a convenience shop, and they have a whole bunch of like cheese,
different veggies,
other toppings.
Yeah, a couple different types of things, sauces, or
to put it together. Now, if you ask for like a chicken sandwich, you'll get like 2 slices of basically kind of like toast bread.
Yeah.
They won't know that you want it in a roll.
You have to specifically say roll.
Yeah. So it took
and it's not a sub.
No, they don't call it a sub either.
Yeah, but it's kind of like that shape of bread in the
Honestly,
US.
me trying to figure out the correct words to say to convey what I want took I would say like a year or two to get right.
To
And
figure out,
yeah,
yeah. Because there's also white roll and brown roll, because that was where the issue was you said brown bread.
right.
And so you got brown
But it was like from a
sliced bread.
yeah, sliced bread. Yeah. And then I told them like, I wanted,
Like, I meant this shape.
and they're like, oh, that makes way more sense.
I'm like,
And
why are you putting roll fillings into your sandwich?
thankfully, the people at the shop have been relatively forgiving. Oh, but they'll stuff a lot of ingredients in there. Like
Yeah.
the amount of stuff that they can put in there. I'm just waiting for the day that one of these people making these rolls makes a little miniature black hole. Oh, spice bags.
Oh, yeah, the spice bags.
You'll see spice bags or spice bowls everywhere now, but they originate from like the Chinese. That is specifically Irish Chinese food.
So, which is different from American Chinese food. You can have some of the same dishes and things, but it is still a bit of a difference in like profile, a little bit flavor profiles and textures. But the spice bag is specifically Irish.
Yeah, and what it is it's basically fries and meat, like chicken meat typically, and a bit of like fried veggies like onions and peppers,
Yeah.
and a lot of salt and a lot of like it's honestly
Different spices. Some of them will, it depends on which spices, but normally, yeah, it has a little bit of a kick. Not super
a
spicy or
tiny
anything.
bit of a kick. It's not usually very spicy though,
Yeah, despite the name.
despite the name. But it's delicious and it's very filling. And I think it's just really interesting and really inventive, like how the Chinese places have adapted to the locale here for the tastes here. And the chicken rolls, I'm very curious why that is so popular. But it's interesting, like once you notice it, like everyone kind of has their own like chicken roll
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
sort of
What's your chicken roll order essentially?
yeah, exactly. Like what specific things do you put on your... And then what about Scotland?
Yeah, because we've been over there a few times. I know we really liked haggis.
Yes.
So I know that's like the whole very stereotypical, but it,
It's delicious.
it's delicious. It was great, and especially like when you could get it with their breakfast.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like
I know that's a little bit of a difference between the Scottish breakfast, Irish breakfast, and English breakfast.
yes.
So like the meats and stuff will kind of change, as will some of the sides and things. But yeah, that was one of the first ways we tried haggis, and we really liked it. It has, how do I put this? Similarity to, especially like the way we would get it sometimes would remind me of sausage gravy from back in the States,
Yeah.
of like when it would break apart. Not the same flavor, but a bit more of along those lines of like
I know
how,
what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit of the texture and like the fillingness of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like how fresh a lot of the food is you can get there
Yeah.
in Scotland, because a lot of the times, at least when we travel there, a lot of the times when we sit down and eat, they're like, oh yeah, this just comes from like the garden out back. The freshest tomatoes you've had, or
Yeah, it's like such and such down the way. This is their jam
right.
for like, putting on your scones and stuff, or
Yeah, they're really good about sourcing things locally. That made an impression
Yeah.
on us, like when we first visited Scotland.
yeah, because it was the first place that we had been of where that was like the common thing. I know we also did like, speaking of like fresh food, one of the things that we looked for in Japan when we went.
Oh yeah, when we visited Japan, yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to experience the food
Yeah.
as well, because we know that, there's a bunch of different varieties of food. So what we ended up finding and really liked was we took a cooking class.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Tiring. Tasty. Tiring. But we also got to keep the recipe.
Oh yeah. It was the style of
A traditional lunch.
the traditional lunch where you had like little appetizers.
Yeah, I think it was
Or
we made like
dishes.
nine dishes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just making enough for like that portion of the meal, but
And
all
we're-
together it ends up being.
I remember wrapping the like mochi for that as well.
Oh yeah, when we're making just like a couple little mochi. What else do we make? Egg thing? I don't know. The egg
The
souffle.
egg wrap. The
Yeah,
omelet
yeah,
thing.
the little that you kind of like roll and make yeah, it was really
That was
interesting.
fun. And I think that's a really unique way to experience the culture, you know?
Because they were also telling us little bits and things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like when this kind of dish started becoming popular, or like here's the order that we eat it in, and kind of why that is, kind of like, you
Yeah.
know, how to like balance the flavors and things like that. And then that's why you eat it in this way.
I was really appreciative of the instructor giving us all that extra info.
Yeah, versus just, all right, flip the egg. Like, oh, all right, well,
Right.
it made it a lot more fun as well. So then we could all sit there and like talk about things, because it wasn't just 2 or 3 other couples, which was also nice. So it was also a way of getting to meet other people that were also either traveling or even from around as well. There's some places you've been that I haven't.
Yeah, that's very true.
I want to go, hopefully.
Eventually, I mean, it's a little tricky finding someone to watch over the cat. But I've been to Hong Kong a long time ago. Hopefully I can visit there again. But I remember really latching on to like the wonton soup. Some of the dim sum dishes, like especially the, forgive my pronunciation, the chiong fan, long rice noodle wrap with, and you put stuff inside of it. A lot of times is either seafood or pork or some kind of meat or something. Let's see. In Belgium, that's where I learned to eat French fries with, well, sorry,
Belgian fries.
they're Belgian fries, the fries, right? There are shops in there that just serve fries and that's it. And
Because you have a bunch of different sauces.
they have a whole lot of sauces to go with it. A lot of them are mayonnaise based, and it is delicious. You could just make fries, a meal with fries, you know. And what I found really interesting was like they had like just a fry shop, and there was a bicyclist who would go out throughout the city just running the fries to deliver. I also had Belgian street waffles, which I didn't know this, but apparently they have like little sugar crystals in it. So when you bite into it, you get this burst of sweetness, and it's crunchy in those sugar crystalline areas too.
Yeah, so it's not all like soft.
Right. So it's not all soft
Okay.
and it's not all necessarily fried, but it's like, it's a burst of flavor that's really interesting. And if they ask if you want chocolate on it, say yes. If you like chocolate.
Well, yes.
It's Belgian chocolate on street waffles, and it has really cool texture. It was delicious. So I think, you know, it's stuff like that that really makes an impact on your memory.
Yeah, there are cool things you go and do, but then you do also like remember the food of places that you've been.
Exactly.
You know?
And trying something new, you're in a new place.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit easier to also like be able to try things that you've not had, or that you might not have access to.
And with Japan, we got like a whole, it was nice learning to cook there, and the instructor also explained like why they did it the way they did it. So I know we mentioned this a little bit, like with the cake, but what are our issues that we've had with food, or still ongoing, and how have they impacted us?
Well, I know we're both quote unquote picky eaters.
Right. Growing up, I wouldn't eat rice.
Yeah.
Not plain rice.
Not plain rice. You needed to have something else.
Yes, like ketchup and rice was like how I would eat it. It's a weird combo.
Just breaking
like,
your...
even to me, adult Argentarius is like ketchup on rice?
No, why would you do
That's why. But young me, that's how
That's how you were able to get yourself to eat it, yeah.
I guess it was just too bland or something.
It wouldn't surprise me, because, I mean, that was part of the thing I remember you saying is also like with veggies and stuff.
Right, with like green veggies and stuff, like broccoli, peas and stuff. My parents would not use butter or salt.
Or anything.
Or very much.
Yeah.
When they were making like American style food. But like
Grandma would make it.
When Grandma would make it, she would stir fry it and put like oyster sauce on it or something, you know.
Yeah.
It would be very delicious.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this has more flavor than wet and green. Which is kind of what it felt like as a kid. I mean, fair, that's same, but like I didn't have Asian heritage for mine, but my family cooked with butter and seasonings. I might be white, but at least my family knew what seasoning was.
Okay, so when my grandma from the other side came, she did cook with butter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are the most amazing peas I've ever had. And I'm like, Grandma, how do you do it? And she's like, whole stick of butter or something like that. Just
Yeah.
like real butter, not the margarine that my family would use, and salt it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and once I discovered butter, I was like buttering toast on both sides. So I love butter.
Oh, this adds a magical flavor to
I
everything.
I apologize to anyone who doesn't like butter
Yeah.
for that imagery.
But also, as like we have things about us and like how we eat, finding new things to add to your things was kind of a big deal for us as kids because normally we
Right.
would run into more things that we didn't like.
It became a stigma, right?
Yeah, especially in my family and where I was growing up, things like that. Like hot dogs and ham were very big things for like a lot of gatherings and birthdays and everything everywhere. And I could not.
And you were like the really odd one out at
Yeah.
like the cookout, you know?
Yeah, so at like the gatherings and cookouts and birthday parties and stuff. So it was like I would always have to make sure, or my parents would, have to check in with whoever was hosting if I was going to like a friend's birthday party or something, or class outing or whatever. Is there going to be an option that I can eat?
For me, with that, like it was like cake and ice cream, you know? And people and all the other kids were like, "Who doesn't like cake and ice cream? You're weird," you know?
Yeah, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, yeah. And for you, it's hot dogs and ham.
Yeah, it was hot dogs and ham. So it was just like, oh,
Also raisins and peanut butter, like ants on a log.
yeah, ants on a log.
I
I like that.
yeah, yeah.
But I would also add cinnamon to it.
I love cinnamon.
Yeah, that was part of how I got you to start liking.
That is how you got me to start liking peanut butter.
Yeah, and almond butter. Well, actually, I started with almond butter. So say like this is the ways of like helping me get with like my meat, my spice tolerance and things. So like
Yeah.
when we were adults and could explore this a little bit easier, and there's a lot less pressure.
You've introduced, yes, and in a safe environment where we're not
Yeah.
shamed,
Like,
essentially.
how dare you? And it's more so like, all right, well, let's explore and see how it goes versus.
Yeah, I'm able to eat a lot of the more softer textured food, a lot of the creamier stuff like peanut butter. I will eat ice cream now too.
Very rarely.
Very,
It has to
very
be
rarely,
specific ones.
very rarely still. It's mainly because my stomach gets upset with it
Yeah.
still. I'm not immune to,
Yeah. Not immune to certain things. But
yeah.
yeah, so that's how it especially like affect us as, kids of very much being outed. And unfortunately, here's why I will go ahead and put a bit of a trigger warning for disordered eating. So we'll put in timestamps. So if you don't want to hear about this, you can
Yes,
skip.
feel free to skip this part if you wish.
Yeah. So when I was younger and more in my teenage years and young adult, I started having more and more issues with food because I was picky and things of that, and started tying in with body image issues.
Right.
So I had started having worse and worse connections with food, and there's a whole bunch of things going on as well. And so food became one of the things like I could exercise control over, but also I would need to hide the fact that I wasn't eating correctly.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Kind of go down the rabbit hole a bit.
Yeah, and so that really messed me up for a good long while, like especially my relationship with food, because I started having a lot of shame and guilt, and it would get bundled into other things, so it would make eating even harder or worse than it already was, because it was just like, well, I'm already, have certain issues with food in general, so then it just kind of like compounded on it of adding that to it. Yeah.
Because things just start kind of snowballing, right? And then it's hard to get out of it,
Yeah.
How did you get out of it?
Therapy. Honestly, that was a fair amount of it. And it was working on a lot of the other outside forces. And it is still something I have to be conscious of.
Yes, I try to be conscious of it as well.
Yeah, I'm generally pretty fine, but I know that it's also, it didn't happen overnight, ending up having that. And it didn't happen overnight for me to get out of it either.
Right.
So it is something that I have to be still cautious of because it's still very, because of, formative years, very ingrained in the brain. So very easy for the mind to go back down those tracks. And that's something I have to like fight with, doctors and things.
Oh gosh, yeah. If they want you to go on like a restrictive diet or something,
It's like I have to be very specific when changing the way that I eat.
right.
But yeah, it is something that like I'm cognizant of because I don't want to go back down that route if at all possible. If it happens, it happens. But I'm not going to help it.
Right. Right.
So I've been doing a lot more therapy and things, and just more so in general, giving myself grace and not shaming myself with food or
Yeah.
around it, or
And not piling things, like not putting things in the way of yourself of like eating, essentially.
essentially the mantra that I still use and was very helpful: fed is better than dead.
Yeah.
Just straight up, which is why I will get very obstinate with people with food sometimes. When they try and either talk about what I'm eating or this, that, or like berate themselves about that. And it's just like, no. End of the day, end of story. Fed is better than dead. If that's what you need to eat and that's what you can eat, that's what you can afford to eat, there's so much issues. We don't need to be adding to it.
Exactly.
So.
I like that.
Sorry.
All right.
Now,
Well, no, that's fair.
now we're out of that. So
So yeah, how have we used food to maybe repair connections?
I'm not going to go back into the prior topic, especially in case you existed, but that was
right.
one thing. I did work on repairing my connection with food in general.
Yes.
I know being immigrants.
Oh gosh. So being an immigrant, I've noticed the food that you used to have available to you is now gone or harder to find.
Yeah.
But it becomes important. And because we, like, for example, we can't find Southern US style biscuit out here unless we go out to another city and travel for it.
Yeah.
We only recently found
And
that.
that's only something recently. It's also a fairly new place. So,
So that's helped us reconnect with our background and, I don't know, satisfy some cravings that we have from time to time. Like, we miss Bojangles, we miss,
barbecues.
yeah.
And it's also been a way that we've been able to introduce some of our friends here to it. Like green bean casserole is not a thing here. And I made that when we had a get together for one of the holidays.
So we've been able to, I guess, not necessarily repair connections, but make new connections.
Yeah.
By bringing our food and sharing it with people. One of the ways I personally have been reconnecting with my Chinese roots, my Chinese heritage, by seeking and figuring out, how do I get access to these foods again?
Yeah.
That I remember from my past. Like, there is a Chinese Irish content creator who, I apologize, I forget his name, but he introduced the Portuguese custard tart things. Said that, yeah, it's in our shopping centers. And I'm like, oh, I need to check this out, because I remember those from, the Chinese restaurants as well. I don't see them here in Ireland very often, but yeah, they're very close. They're the Hong Kong style of tarts have more like a pie crust.
Yeah.
But the
Portuguese is a little more flaky.
Yeah, which
more like croissant flaky.
Hey, I like it still, but
oh yeah, it's not saying it's bad. It's just different.
Yeah, but that's been nice, and also it's also given me opportunities to chat with the Chinese people here. Yeah, and connecting with them.
Run the restaurants. And
yeah,
things.
Asking them like, okay, where do you go for this kind of food?
Yeah.
Like, where do you go for the sesame balls? Or where do you go for some dim sum?
Where do they get their groceries?
Yes.
Stuff like that, because we do have a couple of Asian markets around that we're able to go to on occasion. And we also, like we mentioned in the previous topic of where we've been a bit more intentional as part of like just our everyday self-care. And that's something we've been a lot more like intentional with, is seeking out that content for one, and looking for that, but then also finding recipes, talking to the people here, figuring out, okay, what can we make from the things that we find? Because it was one of the things, since we've been a bit more intentional with what we've been searching and putting into our algorithms and stuff.
Right.
And I stumbled upon a couple recipes that you had forgotten about.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about.
But they're super simple, like, common household recipes.
Yes.
And so we've
Do
been
you remember
figuring out
which
how
one
we
it
can make
was?
those. It was the egg and tomato.
Oh gosh, yes. That's very nostalgic to me. And thankfully the locals at the Chinese restaurants have, or at the shopping centers, have been very kind about sharing information.
Yeah, so that's been one of the ways that we've been repairing, but also making, connections through a lot of our foods
I think
lately.
I don't think you can repair connections without making new connections sometimes. That it just kind of ends up happening, you know?
Yeah, that's how it happens. So I know we talked about being immigrant, and you have your Chinese heritage as well. What are other ways that we've seen different parts of our identity interact with food?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, because we're both immigrants, right?
Yeah.
Our food that we know, like the recipes, like the artichoke, Spanish artichoke dip,
Yeah.
that's a part of our identity now. The southern biscuits, biscuits and gravy,
Stew and dumplings.
stew and dumplings, but in our form of barbecue, that becomes tied with our identity here in Ireland. And honestly, it's with you at home too. Like when we're back in the U.S., it's just
Because there's also different regional dishes there.
right. Oh gosh, end up getting into arguments about which barbecue is the best.
Yeah, who has the best barbecue?
Who has the best barbecue? Wait, what?
What? Nothing.
Yeah, and it's something that you can share. It's valuable because it's something that you can share, a piece of your culture that you can easily
Yeah.
introduce someone to. It's like you can introduce someone to your culture in a way that isn't just spoken through words.
Yeah, it's also experienced.
Exactly. It's a very easy way to experience another culture.
And there are other times where it does run into like not as nice
Oh,
things, such as, when we've had various ways of eating where it can cause a bit of disconnection.
yes.
Such as I was vegetarian for a good long while before, and we were also
We were
low
both
carb.
low carb for a while, yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out, okay, well, do we need to eat before we're going to go hang out with friends? Triple check the menu, that sort of stuff.
Or, if you do have some kind of food restriction, whether it's imposed on you or not.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you can't drink,
Yeah.
that changes the social interaction as well. People tie the way that their beliefs into the way they eat, But because it's tied to people's beliefs, it's very, because you were talking about being a vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
Some people might be vegetarian for a moral reason. Some people might be vegetarian for
Dietary needs.
dietary needs. But no matter the reason, because that is kind of your whole world, it lends itself to being tied into your identity. Like when we're low carb, it's like, all right, we got to find all the choices that we can eat. Can we eat here?
Yeah.
I've also known people who are like very allergic to things, right? And it's like that just affects your entire world experience.
It will also sometimes reveal things about you, even unintentionally.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was one of the ways of your economic status can kind of be shown. Some of my friends were able to figure that out, so were other people, based on, what I was eating, or, what do you bring to lunch? What do you bring to group
Yeah.
outings or potlucks? That's also another way that your culture can show up, and it can be a positive thing.
Right. Well, I guess, how has it affected us in the past?
With a lot of ours, with being labeled like the picky eaters since we were kids,
Yeah.
we would also have different foods that we would bring and, get made fun of sometimes.
I guess since we're immigrants here, our experience here is people always want to know where we're from.
Yeah.
And it's not the where you're from like Ireland, it's the where you're from the US.
Yeah.
To satisfy that, we will often say what the food is like there. We're from where you can find good barbecue and biscuits.
And sweet tea.
And sweet tea. Ooh. Oh, and here's the other thing that I find interesting is that talking with Irish people, they don't quite realize it, but they have this perception that food in Ireland is healthier
Yeah.
and food in Europe is healthier because there's a lot more regulations and stuff. And while that's true to an extent,
Yeah, for some foods.
for some things, yeah, there is a bit more regulations here. But other side is like, okay, but you also have the sugar tax, which means that, for example, because we've been low carb, we look at these things.
Yeah.
That does not leave us. And we're like, we see all the sugars that are put into these foods. And often because they have the sugar tax here in Ireland, a lot of the foods have put in replacement sugars.
Yeah, so they'll put in fake sweeteners, which give me migraine.
Exactly, which can be worse. So it's like, you say that, but unfortunately, I have to push back a little bit because it's like we have a harder time finding.
Yeah, I have a harder time finding things without sugars and or sweeteners here than I ever did in the U.S.
Yes, there's so many things with added sugar that don't need sugar.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And we can't find like dill pickles. It's a lot of sweet
all of
pickles.
the pickles have some sort of sweetening thing in them, unless I make them myself.
You can go to some Polish shops though and find pickles without
the sugar.
Without the sugar. However, they're in brine and not in vinegar, which granted, not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
But
but it's still different flavor than, water has a different flavor than vinegar.
Yeah. I think someone found us like the novelty American pickles one time.
Yeah, and I was just like, real dill pickles. They're just vinegar, cucumber, and salt and garlic. That's it.
I think you saved the vinegar and the brine and stuff to pickle some more stuff.
Yeah, and I went out and got some cucumbers. I was like, in the brine you go.
There you go.
Make my own pickles.
I think we still have some left.
But I've been able to make my own or add on to it. But yeah.
Yeah, so the way that people identify with food, right?
Yeah.
Like I gave the example that Irish people think that their food is healthier when that may or may not be always the case, at least from what we've seen.
Yeah.
And on the other end, the opposite end, where like our American identity kind of shows up a lot, is like the pickles.
Yeah.
But I love that it's something that you can easily enjoy and share with others. Yeah. Even if it's not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like
not peanut butter and pickles.
Why? That's not for me.
It is
case in point.
That's a lie.
What?
You have tried it and liked it.
I have. Okay.
In the States.
I don't remember.
Had it. Yeah.
Okay, it's been a long time.
It wasn't like your favorite thing to go to because you didn't grow up with it as a kid, like me and my weird self bringing that to class as like a 5-year-old. But for whatever reason, it was a thing that my family figured out that I liked and that I could eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, not for everybody.
Not for everybody.
And again, not sweet pickles and peanut butter.
But we found a place here in Ireland that serves gong chao na ho, and you like that dish now. And so I've introduced it to some other Irish people who have also really liked it. And it just makes me happy that I can share, something that is a part of me,
Oh, yeah. That was one of the, when we had the holiday get together and I made a bunch of,
when you
American holiday foods and things.
Yes, your authentic American food. Yeah. Because the thing here is that American food is kind of like a novelty, essentially. So when you make stuff, it's very special. Yeah.
So it was a reason to bring everybody together.
Yeah.
It was things that people were asking about and stuff. So
yeah. It satisfies their curiosity, and a lot of people really like your food.
Yay.
So thanks for joining us, and I do have some questions for you if you want to answer them in the comments.
For those that have been with us through this video or podcast, if you're listening to us, we're curious, how do you connect with different parts of yourself through food?
Yeah.
And also, what are some of your favorite foods? Probably not peanut butter and pickle, but
Hey, if you like
hey,
it.
if you like it, please let me know. There has to be more than just me.
Yes. I look forward to our discussions in the comments, and thank you all for liking and subscribing. It really helps us out. You can also become a member on Patreon and get access to more. Thanks for joining today. Hope to see you in the next one. Stay with us for some behind the scenes. Think we got it?
Something.
Okay. We'll voice it over if need
If
be.
absolutely needed. We
Oh
got
my gosh.
something.
You are so pretty.
This is what happens when
When we swap species?
when we change our stripes.
Ah, yes. You become a little chaos gremlin. You're always a chaos gremlin.
I'm always a chaos gremlin. That's how I identify.
There you go.
What are you, chaos gremlin?
There you go.